Okay. And I do have my opening statements. Welcome. It's nice to have citizens here today. Your comments are welcome at any time during the meeting by raising your hand and being recognized by the chair, except during our work agenda items. Tonight, those are items 7 through 9. But we may welcome comments at 9 because it's yearly goals. We also may ask for citizens' comments before voting on a motion during a discussion. There's no point, however, in being repetitious. And I would ask everyone from the community to also show respect to board members at all times, the way we show respect to you. I encourage all board members to comment and to ask questions throughout the meeting. We'll be checking in with you. Tonight, our board will, we're going to take comments at the end of the meeting so that we can get our work done. We have a pretty full boat here. Hi, welcome.
Could I have your name? Yeah, Michelle Seeger.
Are there any considerations of changes, additions, or removals to the agenda? Noah, do you want to share some of your stuff that you researched today? You want us to add that to the agenda?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion to add to the agenda short-term rental companies.
What number will that be?
Would you like that to go in the beginning, Noah? You don't care?
Yes.
Okay, I'll put it I'll put it instead of rules of procedure since Ryan's not here. So the item number 6.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I'll make a motion to accept the changes that we just made in the new agenda.
I'll
So we're
second.
deleting rules of procedure.
Yeah, because we said all members present.
Okay.
And Jeannie second that. Is any discussion on changing accepting the new agenda? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Approval of minutes for April 15th, 2025.
I read the minutes and I didn't find any changes, but there were a lot of minutes, so, but I'll make the motion to
Okay,
accept the minutes.
I'll second that. Does anybody have any concerns? I read them right after they came out and I didn't have anything.
I read them. I didn't see any errors, but I wasn't there.
Okay. Mr. Alden?
Just a comment because I just had a question not related to that. I'm just curious for the first time in history of Ludlow, any public meeting, comments from citizens has been deleted. I'm just curious why.
No, it's at the end. It's the only reason I put it at the end was because I saw in our rules of procedures, I went through the whole document, that it only occurs at the end. So I put it at the end.
Comments from citizens has always been after rules that I consider changes to the agenda and at the end. I'm just concerned that this board is showing some history or signs of trying to silence or limit what the public can say at these meetings.
I think you're jumping to conclusions. I just looked at the rules of procedure and made the agenda match it.
With all due respect, that's never happened. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your input. Moving on to, we gotta accept the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the minutes,
And I abstain.
and you abstain. Okay. Item number 6, short-term rental companies. Noah, take it away.
Okay, as of last meeting, you guys tasked me with taking a look at some vendors for the short-term rental compliance piece. The big ones, and I shared that with you guys, those notes, if you wanna dive deep into those transcripts and all that. But Descartes, iWork, Granicus, GovOS, a range of what they can do. iWork, very cheap, 7-8K annually. a lot of manual work on our end. The UI user interface, so the portal which you log in, not super streamlined, not something that I think is a simple thing to get someone on board with. The other three, much better user interface, more streamlined to tackle the scraping of data. And essentially what these companies do is they have bots that are going through the OTAs, online travel agencies. So that's your Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, a slew of those, and will capture those listings in our geographic area. It will then cross-reference that with a bunch of other data points, Zillow listings, real estate listings, Google Maps, to identify, yes, this property that looks like it is at 123 Main Street is in fact 123 Main Street. It will then go into our land records and grab the property associated, or the parcel associated with 123 Main Street, and attach that so we know that John Smith is 123 Main Street. He has an active listing, and then it's kind of on our end what we want to do with that. All three of them have portals where you go in and you say, yes, I am John Smith of 123 Main Street. This is my listing. Some of the, depending on what we want to connect, where, hey, that property card's already associated with it. We already have the person's name. So name, address, Do we want a fire inspection certificate? We want a self-certification. We want those documents. Those get uploaded. Payment goes through. Descartes, we would be in charge of supplying a payment processor, so Stripe or M&T would have one if that's where we are banking. The other two have it built in, where it's $100 and it's $3 to process that card. The person gets charged $103, or they can mail in a check or do an e-check for a lesser amount, but they handle all that side of things. And then we're left with, okay, 123 Main Street. It is compliant. They've done what they need to do. And then it's kind of, where do we, as the town, where do we want to take that? Do we want to manually go in and check everything that's already been gone over and checked? Some of them we have to. Some of them we don't have to. I think that's kind of the implementation phase. Where do we want to go with that? I think the simple ones where it's very easy for them to, if these boxes are checked and that information is provided, great, we're good to go. Or we can go in and, okay, we will go in and match, and yes, this actually is 123 Main Street. This information we have on our property card is accurate, and we can go from there. If we wanted to dive deeper into our records, where, okay, that cross-references with our wastewater, our water permits, all that kind of stuff, we could do that theoretically. In conversation with the town, that is an Excel spreadsheet. This really did open up a can of worms where, hey, is it, this is something at select board level. I've had conversations of, do we need to put some money into technology to kind of upgrade some of those systems, but it has all the potential to, if that property card says 3 bedrooms and they're listing for 4 bedrooms, flag goes up, hey, we missed a renovation or something like that, or there's just a mismatch. But it has all those potentials, and then they also have a 24/7 hotline, or email address, or portal, however we kind of want to set that up, of, hey, 123 Main Street, they are causing all this ruckus. We've heard that in the rental registry meetings and all that, where, we have this huge issue. And in conversations with these companies, it can be, yes, we have an issue, or we have a neighbor who really doesn't like their other neighbor, and they're, causing all this kind of stuff, where, at the time, Chief of Police, they did not receive any calls about short-term rentals. So it's, we want to provide that ability to, hey, we have an issue, but it doesn't quite warrant a call to the police. And then they also will kind of set up within that some operating procedures of, hey, you get the call that a bear has gotten into the trash. Okay, that doesn't necessarily warrant a 2 a.m. someone goes out and deals with it. But hey, these guys are having a party, they're being really loud, they're breaking our noise ordinance rule. Okay, that can automatically get pushed over to the police for them to go take a look at it. So
That's cool.
So they have those tools in there. Yeah, they're pretty comparable. They're in the process of sending me some more refined quotes. Ultimately, all three of them do a good job at identifying those properties, matching those with what we have. It will get a little complicated in condo complexes, but they are very good at identifying features and cross-referencing that with real estate listings and things like that, where we do see a lot of turnover in condos. That's the same fixtures, that's whatever, and then it may be a handful of properties that we need to, go out and reach out to a Winter Place or a Brookhaven and, hey, we have this property, we don't know exactly who it is, and then they will pull that data throughout the year, some of them on a weekly basis, others on a monthly, of saying, okay, John Smith at 123 Main Street, he registered for a 3-bedroom, 8-person occupancy. 2 months later, it went up to a 12-person occupancy. Those flags will get those flags and be able to reach out and make sure they're staying compliant.
So when they get the flags, is the town notified or does the company deal with it?
The town would be notified.
And the town
So then
deals
we
with
can
it?
say, okay, John Smith is out of compliance, send them a letter. That's something they have the ability to send those letters automatically, or we can do it ourselves. I think that's a conversation with the town again.
Yeah.
Do we want to do it? I don't know how tax stuff is sent out. Do we like doing envelopes and we're good with that, or do we want to have someone else doing that? Do we want to automatically send them out, or do we want to verify, okay, these 100 look good, boom, send them out. So there's, the nitty gritty operational stuff. We can get into that.
My question, Noah, was, would we need to, or the town need to hire somebody to oversee that? Because somebody's going to have to do kind of those decisions.
Yeah, so
Some kind of an administrator or whatever.
so when things are up and running,
Mhm.
the one company estimated, I think it was Granicus, estimated an hour a week for a person. I think based on a round number of $500, say we have anywhere from 700 to 1,200 properties, we're looking at, $300,000 to $600,000 a year in revenue there.
Okay.
Having a half-time person in the planning office that also helps them out with
Yeah.
what they need. I don't think we would want to pull any resources from the planning office,
That's
but
how I
it will
felt, yeah.
require something.
Yes.
And then once we get up and going, it's something that, okay, year 1, year 2, we're settled, we got this thing going. Now we can move to performing those inspections for the 8 or less, and boom, we can hire a full-time rental registry person that is actually going to be doing inspections and things like that.
So that looks like a fire department position?
So that would probably fall under the fire department.
And that's where their office would be and stuff?
And so I don't know, I think that's
Yeah,
something
that's
that kind of
fair.
evolves, and
Okay.
maybe that's, hey, they perform inspections and they, they just do that inspection, here's your certificate, and it still lives in the planning office. I don't know exactly how that, I think I don't know if it was Dover, I spoke with one of those guys, it was within their economic development, which kind of is in that planning realm. So that's kind of something. One thing that GovOS had, which I really like this idea of, was as you get up and running, put the onus on the property owner, where similar to that self-certification thing, where hey, you are good to go. You have your whatever pieces you do. I am signing this at risk of perjury that this information is accurate, I'm doing things lawfully, and that takes some of the onus off us as we get going. I think the next, figuring out where we're going and then requesting a formal RFP from these three companies, and maybe it's sitting down and kind of discussing things with them. They're all willing to help sit down and go over the operational side of things. I think I live in the software world with my business. I'm very familiar with all that and how that all works. But whoever is actually managing this should have some involvement with how that runs and what works best. And I'd like to know where you guys kind of stand with this. I know select board and trustees had some thoughts and wanted to kind of see that next phase, but obviously not agenda item tonight. So looking for what do you guys need to do this? Is this something that you don't want to tackle at all, or
I guess I feel like the select board and the trustees need to make that decision because they're the ones that handle the money and all that kind of stuff. But I really like your research.
I think though, as a board, we could maybe come to an
Recommendation?
agreement that we think this is a good idea.
Oh,
We think there should be a short-term rental company, recommend that to the select board.
Good idea.
And that we also think, or at least this is what I think, that there should be at least a part-time person to be the liaison and, administrator of all these short-term, but that we need the software to do it. And then you need a person because, you have to have a person that makes some decisions. It's just the software company isn't going to make the decisions for you. They just give you the information.
Mm-hmm.
So as a board, I think that we should just recommend that would be our plan for going forward on short-term rentals.
Yeah, I guess I didn't get that because I just assumed that's what was going to happen because we have like 1,000 and like Plymouth they bought $10,000 worth of software and they have 2 part-time people working on it and they only have like 55 of them or something.
But
So
what
I
Noah
just-
described sounds much more comprehensive.
Definitely, yeah.
there's definitely some startup stuff, but really it's
Right.
I don't think it's a big decision-making role because you either are compliant or you're not compliant. And hey, you have that property that you have a fire and safety inspection. You can rent for 12 people. It says 12 people on your listing. You're good to go. You have a fire and safety that says 12 people. You're advertising for 14 people. Wrong. You need to either
Right.
produce a fire and safety inspection that says 14 or drop your
Right.
occupancy to 12.
But
But
somebody's
it
got to
definitely
generate
entails
those
someone-
emails or letters or contacts or
Yeah,
whatever.
and at a
that-
bare minimum, just reviewing and yes, this
Do
looks
it.
accurate, send it out.
So theoretically, if someone didn't have their occupancy certificate, they couldn't rent.
If the way I've kind of seen it and the way I think the fire marshal has talked about it and what I've kind of gleaned from the board was 8 occupancy of 8 or less, you can self-certify.
Right,
I think we do want to get to the point where we can inspect those properties. Because you could have a 1-bedroom that sleeps 2 people that's not safe, or you could have a 6-bedroom that sleeps 20 people that's perfectly safe.
So, but someone would have to self-certify
yes,
before they could.
yeah,
Okay.
which is following in line with what the state is
Right.
doing right now.
And
Yeah.
I guess the only issue, because I support the idea of the registry, I think that that the issue of enforcement and what it's going to take to do that is key. But again, that's going to be up to the select board and the trustees. But
Yeah.
but I support the registry.
Excuse me, Jean asked a question, I don't think it was answered. And you asked if they have to have a CO to be able to rent. And I believe
I think you need a CO for anything to happen in a property, whether it's rental or
Yeah.
residential.
Yeah, even
Right,
to
okay.
move in.
Everybody's
Yeah.
supposed to have one.
Yeah.
Because I see, and I don't know, well, how you enforce that will be interesting.
Yeah, and that's
But
something
we're
that,
not at that stage.
like, very quickly, I was chatting with Jared about it, and like, they don't have a permitting software where it's an Excel sheet on, or a
Right.
Google Sheets for him.
Yeah.
That, he's kind of cross-referencing where if you had that database for all your permits and zoning stuff, hey, this property applied for this, well, they don't have a CO.
Okay.
Flag,
Hmm.
can't do that.
See, those are things that will come into play, but
Yeah. Yep, I think it's something that I really think starting small and working, get some framework and then build upon it, because it opens up a whole can of worms with everything.
So do you just financially, do you have to pay for this service ahead of for a whole year ahead of time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's payment stuff or hey, you can work on that. One thing I did see from GovOS is they see 80% compliancy year one.
Wow.
So that's
better than Ryan.
that's a
He thought it would be 30 or something.
big number. And I think it's something that the trustees talked about it with wastewater. What is, when you don't pay and you have the fine, what is, you can keep fining people, but what is that next step? And that's something you'd want to identify. Hey, after 3 violations, is that a lien on your property? What is that next step? And I know they talked about, if with the merger, hey, you have water and wastewater together. If someone's not paying their wastewater, you can shut off water. What are your levers to ensure enforcement? They do have, I believe GovOS has some relationship with VRBO to be able, hey, we have a property that's not in compliance, that property can get removed, that listing can get removed. I don't believe there's something on Airbnb like that. I think education is the biggest piece. You're going to get a lot of compliance once people are aware of what they need to do.
Do you think it initially starts with a letter? I mean, does ULA have emails and stuff like that?
I don't.
Or anybody
I
have
doubt it.
Okay.
I know anything registered in an LLC, you can do a biz search and find who that owner is. And
Oh, I didn't know that.
There's an
Okay.
email tied to that. So you are able to go find, 123 Main Street LLC. We know that hey, there is a property owner, but there's also you can backtrack that, and that is stuff that these companies do as well. They do that investigation to find, hey, this is John Smith that owns this property, even though it's in an LLC.
So,
We could allow
Noah,
it to do.
is
Yeah.
the select
Right, yeah.
board looking from us for us to develop a fully fleshed out recommendation of our recommendation is you get a software company, that we develop recommendations on what if there's a violation, do you want that fully
So I think
developed?
that
What
was
are you
kind
looking
of
for?
fleshed out in the ordinance that was
Yeah.
presented.
Yeah, okay.
And that there was some comments about the ordinance and things that the select board and trustees wanted to see updated. So I think part of that lives inside your
Okay.
ordinance,
Yeah.
and then other pieces are complementary of that. I think I believe the select board and village trustees were under the impression that ordinance was going to be amended and then presented at the next meeting. And if that's not the case, I think we need.
No, I'm going to do that
Yeah.
the first week in June.
Yeah, and I think it is, some of the stuff that was in that ordinance, I don't think, I don't remember the planning commission talking about the wastewater and sewer pieces to that. And I thought in conversations with Ben about occupancy being based on fire inspection, not bedroom count. I think those are some of the sticking points, and just the feasibility of bringing this online. I think the septic and wastewater, there are and again with fire and safety, those rules already exist. They should be in compliance to begin with. As soon as we get into septic systems specifically, that's where things get really hairy. I know of cases where, hey, you've had a lake home for 30 plus years, you've been renting it out, you have a septic that has been grandfathered in, that
goes into the lake.
But it's until it fails, it's legal. And now you're saying, hey, you need to do this. Well, we have this piece of paper, we've been doing it for 30 years, this is statute of limitation or whatever that might be. That can bog down the system, and understanding what is, from the town perspective, they have, you have a 1 to 3 bedroom allocation, you have a 4 or 5, 6 bedroom allocation. What is that tied to? It's not tied to people. And then you have to rethink that whole work. Do you do it based on occupancy if you're renting? Is it based on bedroom count? Because if it's a 2-bedroom that sleeps 10 people, that's different than the 2-bedroom that sleeps 4 people.
Right.
This also is the sewer and water not applicable because they're not renting every single day of the year.
And for town sewer, not a huge deal.
Yeah.
The way I understand septic systems, they should be run more frequently. So when you get rented twice a month and you got 12 people in there and you're just having a ton of use, that's not necessarily the best for that system, whether it can handle that or not. And when was the septic built? When did the state change their 3-bedroom, 1 to 3 bedrooms are all 2 people, but then 4 and 5 are 1 person, and I don't know exactly how it is, but I know that it's based on, it's not occupancy driven, it's bedroom driven. So it gets very complicated.
And that was Chris Callahan's point, that occupancy is the most important thing to define.
Yeah, so that's a big, because the state handles all of that septic stuff, really having an understanding of what that means and how that works, I think is key.
Thank you very
That's what I
much.
Yeah.
That's a lot of research.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to our next agenda item, which is village pedestrian safety. And these were some of the ideas we came up with last time: reduce speed limit, bridge to bridge, add sidewalks, Shaw's Bridge to stoplight, Pleasant Street to pedestrian bridge, pedestrian walkways with signal lights to push, 6-inch painted lines that glow with headlights. I added that because since our meeting and this meeting, I attended the regional meeting, and Logan, the transportation person, and my nephew gave this huge presentation, and there was a woman there with a slideshow that talked about accidents and trying to make it as safe as possible. And it's no big surprise that most of the accidents happen on Route 103 and Route 7 and on the interstate. And one thing they said at that meeting was that 6-inch painted lines that glow with headlights has proven to be a safer way to handle the pedestrian walkways, besides the signal lights also. Having a real walk light at the stoplight, and establishment of green space on Mill Street, and handicap parking. I talked to Logan about this stuff after the meeting, and he said the most important thing with the reduce the speed limit thing is to get the chief of police on board with it. And so I went and talked to him about it, and he was not in favor of it. He said that it's only our perception that people are going fast, and they've only been clocked at 48 miles an hour through town is the highest he's ever clocked it. He said that, I know that's pretty fast.
That's pretty fast through the village.
And he said we couldn't do anything about it anyway unless we did a traffic study. And I talked that over with Logan, and he had done a traffic study, but on Pond Street. And we don't want to do it now because it's construction and people are slowing anyway. So it wouldn't be realistic to do it now. But I need to ask, I guess, the trustees and the select board about this, but just the trustees. I don't think he's the authority on how, whether it gets, reduced or not. I know Logan said the other times we've tried to do this, when I was on the board the last time we tried to reduce the speed limit in the village, and it got shot down right away, but we had a whole different set of trustees there. I think there's only one person that's still there. Anyway, so that, if we did a traffic study, it would have to be done after the fall because of the construction. And I'm not sure if the trustees could just do that anyway, to reduce it to 25 instead of 30. So that's where I'm at with that. I did ask Logan to come because, he has some really good ideas. This is what he studies at the regional, and it's all based on data, all the stuff that they came up with. And I still gotta talk about this, if we decided the stoplight needed to have a real walk light, that was something that we could bring to the trustees. But I was on their agenda last month, and I'm gonna get on it for June also to go further with this. Did anybody have any more thoughts on pedestrian safety they wanted to add to this list? I already added the things that I learned at that meeting.
I know we talked about, and maybe something's being done about the sidewalk safety from the stoplight to Shaw's, but is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Right out here, okay,
And
all right.
also
It
between
wasn't clear
Jeannie
to
and I
me.
talked about the new Shell station, that they're gonna completely restore the sidewalk. And they're gonna make it, it's gonna be the whole length of their project there. The sidewalk's gonna be put back. Logan said that if we adopt these straight streets ideas, it makes us eligible for grants. And there's actually $1 billion in grants that exist for road safety projects. And they do focus on the areas with higher birth rates and marriage rates, so we're kinda not there. And also single vehicle crashes with lane departure is like one of the biggest fatalities that people go through. Also pedestrian crossing lights that a person can signal when they wanna cross. Are ours like that now?
Yes,
They are?
down here,
You can make them work when you want them to work?
yeah, I
Okay,
do it all the time. Stop the truck.
and yeah. Feels in control, huh?
When
Because
the-
it takes
the
forever
gar-
to change.
the garden club had a plant sale, so I was out there all day on Saturday. And so when the walk light comes on, you can walk, but I saw at least 3 times where a car coming off Depot Street took the right, didn't even
Oh,
look
yeah.
for the
Take your leg in your
pedestrian.
hands.
And so the pedestrian was walking, and I thought, oh my God. Anyways, the truck finally stopped, but the pedestrian had to run to get out of the way. So I don't know what's wrong with that light, but it wasn't,
The correct way it should run is that it's red lights on all sides and then it just goes beep, beep, beep for the pedestrian to cross with a little
Yeah, you
blinking
get your 10
person.
seconds.
That's what Rutland does, a lot
well,
of
that
places
may be
do
the
it like
case, but the truck was, he probably stopped, but he was taking a right, which he can
Oh, so it was
do
right to,
at
yeah.
the red light.
that.
Yeah, we should
And
probably
the
have a sign that says
pedestrian
you
was
can't do
crossed.
that.
Right, anyways, no, we don't have to spend a lot of time.
No, I think that's an
I
important
just
point.
noticed
That is an important point because
I think
I've
that's
seen
an
that.
important point.
So he stopped and he turned right, but the pedestrian was crossing at the same time.
Right, we need a sign for that.
Anyways, so that's just happened to notice.
But it does, like, if, say you were crossing here, just gonna go across Main Street, it will be a green light, it won't be red when a pedestrian is crossing.
Oh, I know, that's the problem.
And that's the problem, and I think you can get the lights reprogrammed, and I think that's a good recommendation.
Well, I got a second hand that Brendan said it couldn't be done, but I need to find out for myself. That we didn't purchase lights that you could do that with, but I got that second hand, so I need to ask him.
Well, and it might be that if they really want pedestrian safety, get the lights fixed.
Yeah, we really do. Maybe we need to buy a new light.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we're gonna move on to vendor ordinance possible changes. I took all of our ideas and I did some research, and I researched vendor ordinances and, well, how they handle vendors in Chester, West Windsor. Well, I have a whole chart of it. Let me share the chart. And also, the one I found that was most like the things we wanted to have happen, these ideas that we had, was Shelburne's. And so I started with the ordinance from Shelburne's and then plugged in some of our ideas into it. And so I came up with a vendor ordinance and a chart of what everybody else does. Let me just get that open. Oh wait, I gotta say I wanna share and then I gotta open it, right? Christian, no, not Christian, Patrick?
Yeah.
Okay,
Was this in the packet?
no, I just did it the last couple days. I did it after the trustees meeting.
So you should be able to share it, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I'll start with the chart. I was kind of disappointed with the chart because people don't have a lot of regulations. Okay, so the chart is up there. So the town of Shelburne has 3 kinds of licenses. You can get a 1-day license for $25, a 1-week license for $100, and a 1-month license for $100. And that's it. You can have it there 1 week, 1 day, or 1 month.
One
And
month
they have
is the same, I can't read it, I'm sorry,
Oh yeah, 1 month is the same.
as one day,
That is a typo. 1 week was $65. Sorry.
sorry.
No, thank you.
Can you make that bigger, Jerry?
Can you make that document any wider
How do I do it?
or make it full screen?
Where do I do that? Is it under view?
Or just like, can you just take the edge of the window and drag it out?
Yeah.
The edge of this window?
No, further to the right, like that.
This window?
Uh-uh.
No,
Ooh.
that's not, no, actually, just go to the green thing in the upper left. The green button, the upper left,
The green circle.
green circle.
This upper left?
Yeah, just click that.
Okay. Is that any bigger? No.
No, sorry.
Sorry.
Go back to view,
Well, you go back to view.
because I
Okay.
saw something about full screen. Way at the
Yeah, you wanna
bottom,
put
it
this-
says full screen, what'll that do?
Let's try that.
Oh, I didn't.
Not much.
So, a little better. Well, the
Anyway.
background's
Can you
not
do
good.
like Control Plus, or does that not work on that
Oh, it's command, I think.
Command Plus.
Command Shift Plus.
Try it.
Okay.
Can you just print it out?
Yeah, I'll just get my printer in here.
I know on a
Well,
PC you can just.
I'm just gonna say it. I'm gonna say
I
it.
was
so
just
we can
gonna
move
say,
on.
just read it.
So Rutland, I think I mentioned this, not to you guys, but at the trustees meeting, because maybe I did mention it to you. But anyway, they went up to $500 for food trucks, which is why they're coming here. The ones that were in Rutland are coming here. But they got a lot of feedback, negative feedback about that. And I talked to their person about that. And so they're gonna redo the whole thing. But in the meantime, they're letting people open up a food truck for 1 month for $100 this summer. It's just a very temporary thing while they rework the whole thing. But all of these things down here, I know Mr. Alden, you shared that they require a lot of permits, and you're very right, they do require a lot of permits. And Rutland and all these other towns, a lot of these other towns here require every single permit. They're all supposed to have these anyway. But these are towns that actually check on it to see if they have it. They're supposed to have the mobile food facility permit, the public health permit, the employee health permit, and Rutland also makes them have a city license. Makes them come in and get a city license. And but back to Shelburne too, they have to go through the DRB and can get a conditional use permit to operate in Shelburne. Springfield has absolutely no limit as to how long you can have it there. I know there's that one down by the walking bridge
Oh, yeah.
that's there all the time. They only require a $10 registration fee and all the permits. And plus you have to get a town license, but the town license is it's like the same license for everything, and you just check off the vendor box and pay your $10 in Springfield. In West Windsor, they can stay at the same location indefinitely, but if they decide to move somewhere else, they can only stay there 3 days or a total of 12 days a year. If they're doing a weekend event, it's $65. A weekend or holiday event, it's $80. And they don't check on all the other licenses. They just check on the temporary food license, and they have to get a conditional use permit from the DRB. Or maybe it's just from the planning office there.
Sorry.
Chester, that person hadn't gotten back to me yet. I did, ask them about it, but they have to get DRB approval in Chester. And when I talked to the guy from Springfield, he said that eventually everybody's gonna have to go through the planning office to make sure the parking is safe and the trash and the fire safety and all that stuff is there. He thinks it should go through the planning office for them to get a permit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where can one of these vendors go? I mean, can they go on any town property or private property with an okay from the property owner?
Exactly right.
Okay.
And they could go on public property if your boards agreed for that to happen. If our select board agreed, or their trustees in this case,
Okay,
they could go on private property. They can go on the side of the road in some places, but there's a whole lot of regulations about that.
okay. All right.
In Woodstock, they're only allowed on the green under special circumstances. And I guess they told me somebody tried to sell hot dogs there, and there was so much blowback on that person that they were there like one day and had to leave. You have to go and get permission to be on the green, and it's only under special events and stuff like that. So anyway, I took our ideas and I wrote an ordinance, which nobody has seen yet except for Brendan. I sent it to Brendan. I really liked Shelburne, so I started with that.
Is there anything in the existing Ludlow ordinance?
All Ludlow
that
did,
it's okay?
it's from 2008.
I know that.
And all they did was take all those state permits and just copy all the safety stuff and stick it in this ordinance.
Okay.
That's
So-
all that is.
So this isn't,
I'm trying to go back to Zoom to share my screen. Where's Zoom in all this mess?
Would you be able to share that so I can put it in the minutes?
Yeah, of course, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so share. This is the ordinance. I asked Brendan if I could share this ordinance. He wants to meet with me to talk about it before I bring it to the trustees and the select board, but he said that I could share it and get feedback from you guys. So I basically took the Shelburne one and just plugged in some things that we talked about. So there's a general purpose. And our section 430 of Ludlow Village bylaw says that we won't allow anything in our town that takes away from the vitality and the economic growth of the village itself. So I referenced that in the authority along with the state regulations, which is 24 VSA 2291. So they define a food truck, they define the town manager, the town administrator, require a permit. I actually made an application with these things in it too. They go through what you need for your application, the applicant's name, home and business address, telephone numbers, so you can you read it? Is it too small?
Barely.
Okay. So if you're employed or sponsored, your name, address, and telephone numbers of your applicant's employer or the sponsor, together with the credentials, establishing the exact relationship, a description of the food items to be sold and otherwise distributed. Your vehicle has to be registered with the state of Vermont. That's one of those permits you have to show Vermont registration and license. Okay, so if the food truck is to be operated on private property, this is a Jeannie question. A letter is needed from the property owner consenting to the activity. If the food truck is to be operated on any public property other than a public right-of-way, a letter is needed from the Ludlow town manager authorizing the peddling activity. Now, and another thing when I talk, this, yeah, they called it the peddling activity in this particular ordinance. Another thing is in this case, the Sunoco station, when they applied for that permit, they should have applied for a change of use, which is another reason why we really need to upgrade this, because that's not what they were permitted for. They weren't permitted to sell food there, in a food truck.
You mean Sunoco?
Sunoco, yeah, they should have applied for a change of use to be able to, because they were the ones that took out the paperwork on that. So then in this thing, I added the other things that the other towns around here are asking for: a copy of your mobile food facility permit for the state of Vermont, a copy of your Vermont Health Department certificate, a copy of your Employee Health Department certificate, and a copy of your food seller's permit. Those are all things the state of Vermont requires for you to open up a food truck. And so this is the part 2. Application will be granted if it's found that the use of the permit will not violate Ludlow's village zoning bylaws or any permit or approved granted here under and further will not adversely affect traffic, the public good, or the character of the area. And that the town administrator will review this for accuracy, completeness, and compliance with the terms of this ordinance.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
So it also says the town administrator shall preliminary review each blah, 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 blah. And then it goes into so who's the town administrator as opposed to the manager? I'm confused about that.
Okay, let's go back up to
Oh, there,
definitions. Town manager, the village and town of Ludlow town manager, or his or her designee. Town administrator, that would be the people in the administrative office. The town of Ludlow administrative assistant, so that would be Diane and Tori
Okay.
and Cherry. Okay, so these are what I suggested. There's a 200 feet one too, and they measure from the front of the restaurant to the front of the food truck where they're actually selling the food. That it's 200. Oh, just what happened? They kicked me off.
Oh,
So,
just when I stand up, get closer.
Okay, so food truck regulations. Oh no, I already went by that. A permit shall authorize the operation of a food truck at a particular location specified in the approved application. No permit issued pursuant to this. Do you need me to read all that? Okay, so this is where I put the fees, because I didn't find a huge discrepancy in fees. 1 day permit would be 24 hours would be $30. 1 week permit, 7 days a week or less period of time, $100. 1 month permit, 31 days or less or period of time, $300. Those are just things I suggested. What do you guys think?
So, I kinda like it, but my question is, does that mean that a food truck could only do 1 month a year? Or could they say $300, you know, like keep
That's what we
renewing
would have to
it?
decide on that. Well, they're gonna have to, the trustees will have to decide on that. I'm just kind of getting this started.
so I have a question. So is the fee for on-site or days that they're open? I would assume it's on-site, whether they're open or not.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
okay.
that's a good question though. Okay, I gotta find the 200
So they
feet away
could
from,
conceivably move it, right?
right,
And bring it back.
right. And then Brendan said his wife had the idea, and my daughter, when she lived in Longmont, Colorado, they did this. They only allowed them 1 day a week in the same location. So she happened to live in this apartment building, and every Thursday, all the food trucks could come and park there, and everybody knew that, that's when you can go and get food truck food. And Brendan said his wife suggested that for Ludlow too, and Brendan said was even thinking about when Michael's gets bought out by FEMA, that might be a possible place to do that. And maybe 1 day a week, like Mondays, when just about everything's closed except DJs. Anyway, he suggested that. Cause for permit revocation. Okay, if you do something against this ordinance. No food truck shall be in commercially zoned areas of Ludlow, Village of Ludlow only. Trucks must meet utilize state and town highways shall operate so as not to interfere with the free flow of traffic. No food truck shall be entitled to an exclusive location, except in conjunction with a private event, like the stuff they do at Jackson Gore. And they have the interfering with traffic, the parking, the signs. The signs would be limited to 10 square feet. And there's all kinds of stuff at the state of Vermont that says you have to take the signs in when you're not open. They can't be out there all the time.
What's the deal when the truck's the whole sign?
Yeah, I know. See, that wouldn't be allowed.
That's my start to all of it.
Yeah. But here's the one. Okay, so the following location standards shall apply to all permit holders. Food trucks are not allowed on the grounds of any school unless it's part of a school function, authorized function, except when operating in connection with a festival or special event approved pursuant to. Food trucks must locate at least 200 feet from any fixed-based food service establishment with an operating kitchen measured from the front door, and any hotel, bed and breakfast, motel, or inn measured from the nearest edge of the property. That was the part that that we talked about. And then the limiting days was the part above. Increasing the fee, making sure we have exemptions for farmers markets, and that they need to follow lighting and billboard rules. Anyway, that's what I got.
So the 200 feet scares me a touch, just because I don't know the exact measurement there, but that doesn't feel like that's really all that far. I feel like 500 is more of a comfort zone space.
That's good input. I copied this from Shelburne, so
that's
it can be adjusted for sure.
Yeah, and then when you say the vitality of the town, is that a situation where someone would be looking at it and seeing that there is something very close to this
Yeah,
place,
yeah,
and
definitely.
they could say no.
That it's not good to put our brick and mortars out of business, because
Right.
that's the vitality of the town that we're
Right.
concerned about.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And that's in our zoning, it's in our town plan,
Yeah.
it's backed up everywhere.
Okay.
Anyway, do you wanna read all of it? I don't know. Where do we wanna go from here? I'm gonna present it to the,
You've got a question.
oh yeah, yes,
Hi.
sorry.
I'm Michelle Sucre. I own the eatery
Oh,
next
okay,
door,
Michelle.
and I also started with Vermont Bliss Food Truck. So I have an interesting perspective.
What is Vermont
What is your
So
perspective?
my food truck was how I started my business.
Can you go to the mic? I should
Sure,
have switched
absolutely.
Because people,
That mic will
wait,
pick-
I'm the only one in Zooming anyway, so never mind.
That mic will pick her up anyway.
Oh, well, okay,
Yeah, that
yeah,
mic.
I'm sorry.
All right, so I started 4 years ago with a food truck called Vermont Bliss. And when I started my business, I did so because it is a much less risky entry point into the restaurant business. So you can essentially get a chance to try out your business model and see if it would work, build a name for yourself, etc. From day one, when I started my food truck, I committed that I would not go head to head with a brick and mortar restaurant because of the overhead that you must have in order to be a successful restaurant. Year round, we have to have employees full time, we have to commit to them. And we have to ride the waves of slow season, busy season, and allowing food trucks to come in for an entire summer would essentially give them a chance to cherry pick the best times to come in and make money. So I have a couple thoughts. I was listening to the things that you're including. A lot of towns require you to provide proof of insurance as well, business insurance, not just vehicle insurance. So you may want to consider that. Also, it would be good to ask any food truck that's coming into town what their commissary kitchen is. Some food trucks use their truck licensed as their commissary kitchen. If so, they need a different license, which is a caterer's license. So you want to make sure that they have that as well. If they use somewhere else, you want to know where it is and you need to see the license for that. Okay. And one of my questions for you was whether you would consider a limited amount of time for a food truck, because essentially they if they're coming in for the whole season, it's like setting up a snack bar without any of the hoops that we had to jump through to open our restaurants. You know, I noticed that in the old ordinance for Ludlow, it said that a response to an application would be back within 15 days. I had to wait 30 days after the DRB hearing to even hear whether or not I could go forward with my restaurant. And the detail at which the construction of that restaurant went through was quite an exercise. I mean, there's a drain in my kitchen floor and I had to install a drip so that that drain is never dry. There was concern that I might have to put a wheelchair ramp into my kitchen, even though nothing in the kitchen was wheelchair accessible. All of these things are things that restaurant owners have to go through, but a food truck can just roll in. You know, is their ANSEL system inspected? Is there, you know, where are they getting their portable water? Is it hot? You know, all of those safety things. And really, as a food truck owner, if you're not going to these big events, like I would be at vintage market days, places where there are lots of people. If you're not going to those big events, you can kind of fly under the radar and not be inspected as regularly by the state. Now, if you're at a big event, the inspectors are there about noon on Saturday when you have a line of 50 people because they want to see how messy you get when you're buried. And so you're going to keep your practices tight.
And definitely the trustees are on board with limiting the numbers of days, because when, you know, I said the 150 days, Bob Brandt said, that's a restaurant.
Yeah.
If you're open for 150 days, you're a restaurant. You're not a food truck. You're not coming and going for sure.
And honestly, I think it would be very cool to have a place in town where the growing number of food trucks could come in and provide variety, but also events like the summer festival where the food trucks come, those kinds of things. That's where food trucks should be. That is
Well, my initial thought was they should be only 3 days and tied into an event. But then when I looked at all the neighboring towns, it was like some of them have no duration, time slots at all. And so, because the trustees asked me to go and research all the area towns and what they had for, you know, rules and regulations. So anyway, I think this does say, certificate of insurance. Each food truck must provide the town of Ludlow a certificate of insurance to cover public liability in the amount of at least $100,000.
But your comment was a little more specific
Yeah,
than that.
business insurance.
It's business insurance, it's not
Business
vehicle insurance.
Okay. So I don't know, does anybody have anything they want to add to this ordinance, or is there anything in it that you disagree with, Noah?
Yeah, just regarding the billboard sign piece of it, Michelle, have you come across any food truck I've ever seen? That's your
All
advertising, that is what it is.
Mine was lettered huge,
Um,
so that would be a big problem.
But they maybe could cover it up at night.
I don't
Stick
know,
a-
I mean, mine was a
Stick a
huge,
piece of
it was a
plywood
wrap.
over it.
So, that, I don't know how you deal with that, cause I've not come across
So what do you guys think? Should we change the signage thing?
food
Signage
truck
part of
that
it?
isn't like
I
this.
think the signage doesn't bother me as much as the amount of days.
Yeah, me too.
I think we need to limit the amount of days, and I also think having that, I don't know what the wording is, but like competing with a restaurant that has similar food, I do agree that 200 feet
Isn't it far enough?
isn't far enough, no, because it's
Ted, you're
easily,
a numbers guy, and actually you are too,
200
Judy.
feet.
What should it be? What should we
I
settle on?
don't feel that you should have anything in the town like that. It should be the area you talked about out of town
Yeah,
or designated.
it's just if that's gonna take a
Call it
long
whatever
time
it
to
is.
happen, maybe we can
The
do that
day,
later.
the days
Yeah.
that Judy talked about, the amount of time is definitely a factor.
Mhm.
And the signage to me is still huge
Yeah, it is huge.
because we spend so much time, you guys even way more than I have about signage. And I know how Rose feels about signage.
Yeah.
Signage has always been a real pain in the butt. And that's just a huge billboard. It's in the worst place in town for starters.
Which I guess is
And
why
it
a lot of
shouldn't
people,
be next,
a
it
lot of people
shouldn't,
have to go through the planning committee, have to go through the planning office to get their food trucks. They gotta follow all the same rules
Yes.
about signage.
I hate to send more time and effort to the DRB, but maybe that's another thing that really ought to happen.
Yeah,
Because that's just another level that gets rid of some of the problems, possibly.
yeah, cause they have like no safety stuff unless they went and got all their permits from the state of Vermont.
And where the lunch bus is now, that wouldn't fly with any DRB permit regarding the flow of traffic and the parking. I mean, it's right there where all the traffic is coming in and going out.
And
And
the
it
point is,
just
nobody
doesn't
even looks at that with food trucks. No one even takes a look at that. But let's settle on a number here, because I gotta take this to the trustees on June, whatever it is, 3rd or whatever. What number of, and Eric, I will call on you, what length away from the restaurant should it be? I have it at 200 feet here,
At least double that.
at least 400 feet? Where is that part?
Yeah, I think if we gotta put a number to it, yeah.
Did I hear Ted though suggest not allowing it here in the
No, I don't
village
like,
district?
personally,
I
I
don't like
don't like it
Yeah.
in town like that.
I would prefer
If there's
no.
designated areas and it really sets the town up to not have them on all these crazy places that a lot of times don't make sense with the signage.
Or if it is in town, it's limited, like,
Shorter times.
like what, I remember, what is the bar right down here?
Oh, Main and Mountain, they don't
Main
have
and
one.
Mountain used to have food trucks on a weekend, like on Friday night or something.
They still do.
They still do, and I have no problem with that,
That's totally connected to someone's business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
But what I'm saying
And it's
is
just in
That's
supporting,
just like one
supporting
night a
people like
week or
yours, you
something
know,
like
that wanna open up their own restaurants. He's about supporting people.
Yeah.
Noah, Eric,
Just 2 comments. You want to check on the definition of signage, because I don't think a lettered vehicle falls under the sign ordinance. If it did, we'd all,
If it doesn't, it should.
your truck's lettered, my truck's lettered, we all have signs on our vehicles, so I'm not sure that thing. And I guess a way to limit it, if you will, without limiting it, is, your distance. If you go 400 or 500 feet, that basically eliminates everything in the village. I don't think you can go
No, from a
500 feet.
competing, from a restaurant that serves the same type of food.
Okay, that's different then, okay.
That's what I was.
So if they serve the same thing, they can't be within that.
Right, so they'd be.
well, I don't think you should say the same thing, cause people can argue that.
That doesn't say that in here. It's
No, it doesn't say that in here. It just says away from
Oh,
a
I
restaurant.
read that in
From
the-
another-
It only says away from
ideas.
any fixed food service establishment with an operating kitchen.
Oh.
Which I think we should say, because people will say, well, it's not Mexican food, it's Spanish food, or it's South American
But-
food.
But there's already another lunch bus, whatever, down by the high school, down in the,
I don't think
parking
that's a
lot.
truck though. I think that's a food,
It's a trailer, but
It's a
it's still
trailer.
similar.
yeah, I mean,
It's
it's
still-
movable.
is it a stand?
It's right across from Village Pizza, it's in the parking lot of
The donut
the
shop.
donut shop. And that there's traffic associated with that as well, and parking.
And it competes with the pizza place, because they have the hot dogs and the hamburgers that the pizza place has, and the french fries and which is
I
why
mean-
they started serving breakfast to compete with the donut guy.
Wow.
So, but anyways, my
I think-
point is, there is
I
another
think
one.
the best way to deal with it is to have it with a limit of how many days they can be in that spot.
Okay, so this one says 1 month, 1 week, 1 day, 1 week, or 1 month. Is 1 month too long?
1 month feels very long.
Feels very long.
1 month would be fine if they're where it's like, you know, a designated spot.
Right, but not if there's
But
not.
if it's just you wanna park it, you know,
What should we limit it to then? 1 week?
I would say no more than blank consecutive days.
Yeah.
Look at consecutive days, 1 day, 2 day, 3 days, I wouldn't do more than that.
So what if they moved for a day and came back for another 6 days, and then moved for a day and came back for another 6 days?
I didn't say 6, I said 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah.
But I'm saying if you said consecutive days,
Yeah, but they can't be parked in a spot for more than, say, 2 consecutive days. So maybe they come every Friday night.
I'm
or
taking 1
I
month
don't
out of
know.
here.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I like food trucks, but I understand that they compete, you know?
It's very common in like Portland area, like in cities,
Yeah.
that the food trucks go to breweries and they go to
Yes.
places like Main and Mountain and they roll in, they have their event, they're
Yeah.
there as like the guest providing food at these places, so, and then they leave.
No?
So I think back to the sign thing,
Mhm.
I think it gets a slippery slope. What about Code Uncoda who has their trucks overnight, or Master Plumbing, or any of the other businesses? They're somewhat wrapped, fully wrapped. I think that gets dicey, and I think limiting days makes it less of an issue where that's a big eyesore instead of it
So
being there for all summer.
Do you think they should have to follow the signage rules everybody else has to follow?
If it was a sandwich board sign, yes, but I don't think, and Michelle, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think any food truck exists that would meet
Right.
signage
So do we-
requirements.
Do we just take that out, this whole sign section?
Yes.
And the other piece back to, I'd be interested if these other towns have special event permits that allow them to do it, because the way I read that ordinance, Main and Mountain would not be able to do what they're doing. The chili cook-off wouldn't be able to do it, the Legion doing barbecue chicken wouldn't be able to do what they're doing. All of those things would need to now get zoning permission to operate those things, and I think what Main and Mountain does, it comes in on a Friday or a Saturday night, but they could be competing with surrounding businesses, even themselves, but the way that reads, they would still be required to do that. So maybe there's something where, hey, a 1-day permit, you don't have to do these kind of things, but if you want that week long or that
Ooh, that's a
3-day
good
or
idea.
something, because I imagine Main and Mountain or these other places, they're maxed out on what they can do for zoning as far as parking and tables and people. They probably can't handle that.
So it might be you have like a special event permit. That's just whatever that event is, and then maybe one where they could only operate for X amount of days and X amount of consecutive days.
There you go.
Okay, so I just wanna get this in here, right?
I'm just throwing
No,
out
no,
ideas, I'm not.
That's exactly, that's where I came in this, I said 3 days tied to an event was the only thing that I think we should allow them for.
I think
Jeannie, what do you wanna say?
I think that if someone has a business and they have a permit for that business, and along with that is parking and all those kind of things, that when that business invites multiple food vendors to come in and take the parking that's allotted to their business,
Oh, yeah, you're right.
that becomes an issue, becomes a safety issue, like the one at Sunoco, if someone has a business and already has a permit for that and has been through the DRB process and all that, to add another business venture or guest as part of that plan, I see a problem with that.
Yeah,
Unless when they got their permit, that was part of their permit process. That, once a month, we're gonna invite vendors to
and it
come.
wasn't part of Sunoco's permit process,
No, and I'm sure it
or the
wasn't,
cider donut place either.
or I'm sure it's not part of Main and Mountains, just because, that where they use that's part of their parking for their customers, not for vendors.
Yeah.
So I would think that that would cover most places.
Okay. Mr. Alden?
I just wanted to make a clarification on what Noah said, because I thought the same thing about the conflicting, like the chili fest, like the barbecue, but that's under the vendor ordinance, and it's my belief that this is specifically
Food trucks.
food trucks.
Yeah. Which is what the
Vendor
trustees.
ordinance needs help too.
Yeah, the vendor ordinance needs, the
Because all
days
those-
have to change for
Yeah, all
sure.
those conflicts exist in the proposed new vendor ordinance. But this, I think, this doesn't affect like the chili fest, this is specifically for food trucks, if I'm
Yes,
understanding
yeah.
right.
Well, then you'd have to have a definition of a food truck versus,
well, I do have,
a
a
cart.
there is a definition
okay,
up here, food truck, let's take a look at it. Food truck, a licensed motorized vehicle or mobile food unit, ooh, we don't want that. Because they're allowed 14 days mobile food units, they're only allowed 14 days in the state of Vermont. Including a trailer or converted recreational vehicle, equipped to refrigerate and or cook food where on a temporary basis such food items are sold to the general public or to individuals attending a special event. Operation of a food truck shall not include temporary seating. Okay, we gotta hash out this duration thing.
Could I make a suggestion as a possible number of consecutive days you would accept, and then maybe a number of maximum days per calendar year? So that you'd
That's a
have
good
two
idea.
limits.
That's a good idea. Okay, so let's take a look at that duration thing.
And that might get you a nice variety of other food trucks coming to like, just visit.
Yeah.
Okay, so 1 day permit, 24-hour or less period of time. How are we changing this? Say that stuff about consecutive days. 2 types of food truck permits. So the first one is a 1 day permit.
Yeah.
Tied to an event. Should you say 1 day or 2 days? 'Cause I think the Justin Gore is 2 days.
The
So
summer
is the,
festival is 2 days.
Summer festival,
I
yeah.
would say, yeah,
Okay, so 1 or 2 day
a
permit.
maximum of 2 days.
24 hours, 48 hours or less.
This doesn't dictate anything at Jackson Gore, because is this village or is this looking to be a town ordinance as well?
No, you're right, it's a village ordinance.
I think anything future should be, let's think about it as both. 'cause
Yeah,
you're
me too,
gonna have
because
merger.
we're gonna merge it, yeah, we're gonna merge. Okay, so what do you think about that price, $30? 1 or 2 day or less period of time, $30?
It's awful cheap.
What?
It's awful cheap.
Just for perspective, if you are a vendor at Vintage Market Days at the fairground, it's $450 for
Wow.
the weekend.
Is that for your local permit, or is that for the having a space
That
there?
includes a temporary Rutland City permit.
Yeah.
But that's your spot at the fairgrounds.
What do you wanna land on,
100.
$100?
But there's also, many thousand people there versus just being here.
Okay, so the second kind of permit is gonna be the consecutive day permit. So how many consecutive days? Or do we not wanna have one at all?
1 week permit?
Oh, but we're going to say a 1 week permit, 7 days or less period of time, and then in 1 calendar year? Is that what that's what we were saying?
Well, then you wouldn't call it 1 week, you could say, whatever it is, like,
30 days, no more than 7.
yeah, but between 1 and above 2. So you could say 3 to 30 days in a calendar year, or something like that.
Or no more than 30
No more than.
days in a calendar
Yeah.
year.
Okay, so 3 to 30 day,
No, say no more than 30 days, I think, just,
okay,
sounds better.
to no more I'm thinking 30-day permit. Oh, where's the part about the consecutive thing? We gotta put that in here somewhere.
Oh.
Did you
and
put
then
per
and
calendar
just
year?
put that in a calendar year and
Yeah.
say no more than 3 consecutive days.
A food truck can't be parked in the same place for more than 3 consecutive days, or 2, whatever we decide.
3 to no more than 30 consecutive days. Permit? That's a mouthful.
I know, just take the 3-2 off and just say,
Up
3
to.
or no more?
up to 30 consecutive day permit.
Okay,
Of which,
up to 30 consecutive day permit.
and then say, of which a food truck can't be in one location for
More
more
than 3
than
days.
3 days.
I think that the consecutive
Yeah,
day
technically
portion of that is confusing that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
It's-
it's a consecutive, just
it's-
up to 30-day permit.
Up to 30-day permit.
30 days
Yeah,
per
you can't say up
per
to 30
calendar year.
consecutive days.
Okay, up to 30 days permit of
per calendar year.
per calendar year. That makes
So
Yeah.
you're saying one food truck cannot come into Ludlow for more than 30 days
In a
in
calendar
a
year.
calendar year.
Yeah.
And they
Unless
can't be
they're-
in one spot.
unless they're here for, so say they were here just like pulling in, finding a private place to park. And they're doing 2 days here, 2 days there, and they've gotten to their 30 days, but the summer festival comes around and they'd really like to do that. Does that count as their 30 days? Or is that a special event?
That is a
That's
special
okay.
event.
I think it's a special event.
I would say that's a special event.
I would say that wouldn't count.
So how do we not make it count?
Is there a way, like, I think some of these, like, if you get into like a mobile food unit, that kind of classifies as those barbecues, depending on how really nitty gritty you get into that definition, where if you come up with a special event permit, I mean, that hits your farmer's market, your festivals, anything that may come up, and, you know, here's that fee associated with it.
Okay, so we'll have a third one
But it
that's,
needs to be a,
Well,
They
no,
get-
because this is a food truck thing.
yeah, but we gotta take that part out that says, where's that part? That says,
cause what if I
mobile
get a
food
grill?
unit, we gotta take that out.
Yeah, well, it's not a food truck, is it?
That's a pop-up.
Yeah, well, I bring in my grill, I leave it down at Village Pizza, and I'm grilling out every day. It's not a truck. It's just my grill on a trailer. I threw a tent up there to keep it dry, and I'm leaving it there.
I agree with you.
That's called a pop-up,
Well, but I think you gotta,
but he's having it every day, so.
but I mean, you have to put it in there.
Well, that's why it says mobile food unit.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. Okay.
And
Okay.
I think
Did we
it sounds like
fix that?
everyone agrees that if all of this would be excluded from a special event. So it could almost just be like a sweeping statement across the whole thing, is that like,
Unless permitted by
right,
a special.
Unless
for a
permitted by a special event.
For a
Right.
special event.
Okay,
right.
where does
Because
that
then
go?
the barbecues and whatnot, those would have a special event permit, yes,
I would imagine.
normally.
Where does that go?
Scroll down a little.
I think that would be in with the length.
Right, maybe here, permit required?
Mm.
Unless you have a special
Okay,
event
so
permit?
so if you look, I'm just looking. It shall be unlawful for any resident or non-resident to operate a food truck or mobile, whatever it's called, unit.
Mobile food.
Well, we already defined as food truck, including that up above though.
Oh, okay.
But I think that's a place to put it though.
Yeah.
It would be unlawful for any resident or non-resident to operate a food truck without first obtaining a permit, therefore pursuant to this section, unless it is a special
With
event
the
permit,
with the exclusion of
with
the
the
special event.
exclusion of a special event permit.
Yeah.
items.
And you probably
So-
want that special event permit to include all those safety and
So that would be a
Permit.
separate ordinance.
That isn't already an ordinance, special event permit?
Yeah,
That's not already an ordinance?
I'm sure
well,
it
no,
is.
it's, you might just wanna update it so you have those,
Exactly.
yeah,
So-
hey, you have your health and safety
Yeah,
stuff.
so you have the same kind of information on both.
Do you guys agree that they should show all this stuff that they've done with the state of Vermont? I added all this, it wasn't part of this ordinance. That you have to have a copy of your mobile food facility, all that stuff.
I do.
I think
I do too, you're supposed to have it to operate in
Food from a
Vermont.
food truck that wasn't certified.
Yeah. Rutland and Rutland Town both required
A
it.
little case of food poisoning, no thanks.
So I think our vendor ordinance kind of includes that. Like,
Do you have enough?
I don't think they asked to see it though.
the applicant will also provide the municipal manager with copies of any and all federal, state, local zoning permits necessary for the intent vendor to conduct business as set forth in the application, including but not limited to Vermont State Sales and Use Tax Certificate, Meals and Room Tax Certificate, and Vermont State Health Permits to operate a food establishment. It's not clearly spelled out exactly which one. So the special event permit may have that language, whether it's being collected or not.
I think we should collect it.
That would be difficult.
Well, why don't we work on this, and then if we have to, we could review the other one at our next meeting.
Yeah,
Let's not get out in the weeds.
yeah. Okay, so then we're good with this part. There shall be 2 types of food truck permits available for issuance under this section as follows: 1 or 2 day permit, 48 hours or less period of time, $100. Up to 30-day permit per calendar year, that can't be the same price.
No.
How much? 400? Well, that's a bargain. If it's $100 for 2 days,
Fine,
500?
at least.
Well, Bob Brandt did say after I said Rutland had 500, he said we should be at least that much.
So take the word 100 out. So are you going to say, are you gonna have the caveat that they can't operate more than whatever we pick, 2 or 3 days in the same location?
Yeah, where do we put that?
Right under the 30 days for the calendar year.
That's what I think.
Under this,
Yep. Well, that is fees though.
Yeah, do you set up a fee for the 30-day permit, or do you just say you have a 30-day max?
Oh,
Like, you can come here for 2 days, no more than 2 or 3, whatever you decide on, consecutive days. And you can do that multiple times throughout the year, but for
It's
no
just-
more than 30 days, unless you're here for a special event.
oh,
And
so it's
then
not
that way you're collecting
consecutive.
the 100 every time.
That way you're getting $100 every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, $100 per day.
Oh, so we just take out the whole 30-day thing?
No, you're
No,
leaving
leave
the
it, but say, the fee is $100 per day.
Oh,
'Cause it's up, so if they do 29 days, it'll be,
okay.
You're just setting a
$2,900.
maximum, like you can't come here more than 30 days.
All right, so up to 30 days permit per calendar year. The fee is $100 a day.
I don't even think you need to put the fee. You're already saying the fee in the top one, so it's the 1 to 2 days that they're allotted to come.
Yeah, but you get 3 days for $100 up there.
But
mean, 2
yeah,
days.
and that would be fine. You're just setting a limit. Like you can only, if you're doing a 3-day permit, you can do that 10 times for the calendar year. That's it.
Yeah.
And then go to a different town.
What if someone wants to come for 1 day?
and they can do
$100.
1 to 2 day permit.
So it's spelled out in that permit that, hey, I bought the 2-day permit, but I'm only staying for 1 day.
Yeah, you probably do need a 1 day.
And a 2-day. I don't know, it'll automatically give me a number, cause this was it did, cause this was somebody else's. Okay, 2-day permit. So is a 1-day permit $50? No, cause we're saying $100 a day down there.
If it's $100 a day,
Why
that's
can't that be the same? 1 to 3 day permits, $100, whether they have
Each
1 day or 3 days.
Wait a minute, what'd you say?
It's a 1 to 3 day permit, $100, they can use it for 1 day, 2 days or 3 days. If they're only here for 1 day, it's still a 1 to 3 day permit, $100.
But then you have to pay more if you're up to 30 days.
Well,
It's $100 a
That's
day.
their- that's what they can't exceed.
Okay. Dollars.
Oh, that looks good, Sharon, right there.
Okay.
So are we recommending this for a village
Yeah, I'm gonna bring it.
and a town ordinance, or just the village at this
at
point?
this point.
At this point, it's just the village, but
I would say present it to the select board, I think.
I'd
I think they
agree,
should
okay.
have
make
that.
it a town and village
Yeah.
ordinance.
It's all-
Right, at this point, yeah, it can't be both,
Okay.
it has to be two separate.
I guess on that 30-day max though, in the application, they then be telling you whether they're here for 1, 2, or 3 days? Because then you don't wanna say, oh, well, they had this permit this time and this time and this time. They could have been here for 3 days, but they only intended to be there 1 day,
Oh,
you know, like
Yeah, you
for that
could end up
30 day
with
you're
max.
getting too convoluted here.
Well, no,
I'd say
I'm just
that's
looking
like
for
a
gray areas.
Be
Yeah.
realistic,
On that
she did
permit,
it.
you get it issued for 1 day, 2 day, 3 day.
Yeah,
But it's the same cost,
Same
but yeah, you
cost.
specify when you fill
Yeah.
that in.
yeah.
That is
So I
what
would
was
say it's
there.
more administrative.
It was more an administrative
Yes.
gray
Yeah.
area.
Yes.
Yeah.
In most cases.
Yeah, you're right, especially in the super case.
Executive, make it easier.
Okay, so is there any other tweaking we wanna do here before I bring this to the trustees? We're gonna try to get this done at a public hearing in July. This doesn't have to be warned.
Who does the permit get issued to?
The actual operator.
Okay, because at the current time, permit is issued to the property owner.
Right.
Does the property
So the-
owner
oh,
have
okay.
any onus in this, any
I
responsibility?
think it says something
Especially
in
if they're
here.
providing water.
Well, if they already have a permit for their business, I would think that this is probably, they're not gonna get a permit for this.
They're not, cause they should have got a
No.
change of use.
Right,
But
so,
the town gave them a permanent, so.
right, well, in this
Yeah.
case, they did and they shouldn't have,
Right,
but going forward, I
right,
mean, this ordinance is it's gonna apply to places where there's not already an established business operating.
yeah, true.
Whether it's a gas station or a restaurant or whatever it is, if there's already a business there, they're gonna have to get a change in use to their permit.
And that the administrative office doesn't know that. They need to know that. That's required for a gas station to all of a sudden have a food truck.
Well, the planning office didn't know that regarding the food bus that's already there.
Yeah, no, because it doesn't go through the planning office, it just goes through the administrative office, they pay their money, that's it, they're there for 150 days. But once this gets warned, like if this gets warned at the trustees meeting in the first week of June, once it's warned, it's law until it's decided upon. Noah,
So does this require going through the DRB?
it doesn't, do you think it
Okay.
should?
Well, I guess it does beg the question, does this rule allow any food trucks at all? Or did we just put this in and you know, hey, we want food trucks, you gotta follow the rules, but the rules are not, you can't follow them at all because you're never gonna be able to get a permit to do that, a zoning permit.
Only in a private, only a business that's not zoned for it.
So if we're saying like, I think Sunoco they got quite a bit of parking there. If they can't get it, who would be able to
But
get
it's
it?
a change of use for them, they should have gotten in the first place.
And their parking,
Excuse me.
their parking plan, they may have plenty of parking, but where the food bus is, it's right in the lane of traffic. So you'd wanna, it should have been moved,
So what
It
I'm
just-
hearing Noah ask is, okay, where do you imagine a truck being able to get a 1 to 3 day permit to be?
The town, right?
Where?
That's
Main and Mountain.
Well,
Main
they
and
couldn't
Mountain.
because they don't have the park.
they won't have
And
the
they're not
parking.
200 feet away, they're not 400 feet
They're
away.
not 400 feet away from anything.
I think this is gonna end up putting him in a designated spot in town. Like down at Michael's.
Yeah.
Which is what
Well-
Brendan is suggesting.
There's also been other ordinances that I've seen in towns that say that they need a written consent from the adjacent restaurants to them. And if we put in something like that, then,
They still wouldn't get parking.
oh, right.
And that's an issue. I mean, it's an issue now without that kind of lunch service. I mean, we already have a parking issue. So if you're adding more vendors, it's gonna create more need for parking, which you don't have anyway. It doesn't make sense to me.
And you don't have handicap parking for sure.
And no handicap parking. And no safe entrance or exits. So,
But it does cover special events.
yes, which
Yeah.
makes sense.
So
Yeah.
special events, you don't have to follow zoning. So you could do that main and mountain event.
There you go.
Yeah, it would be a special event.
Yeah, that would work.
Okay, are we good with it?
So really what this does is it makes it more special event or intermittent
Yeah.
things. It's not saying, no, we don't want food trucks, but we don't want them.
But if it's really impossible to do, it may be kind of good, like I think getting to, hey, we're really, if you're saying no more than 3 consecutive days, it does change things a little bit, where it's not, hey, this is an established place and you have it. You know, but it does limit the potential for vendors to come in and do their start. And I think Michelle hit on it, you know, before, it's like, these are entrepreneurs who found a gap in the market and an opportunity to do it. And, you know, I think the 2 that are operating now, they're not doing anything wrong. They're following the rules.
Yeah, they got their permit
They did things
legitimately.
properly, and now, hey, we wanna rethink it before it gets too crazy. I think attaching it to, I don't know if there is a way to add some wiggle room there where you allow it for that type of event. You know, chili cook-off farmers market, we don't, you know, they didn't add any parking for their events. They're using what's existing to do those, and we said, hey, we're okay with doing that for these specific days.
Well, that's why it's a special event.
Right.
And plus, it's a Sunday and just about everything's closed, so there's more parking available on the street than you would normally have.
Or maybe we don't need to have that 400-foot rule because you're limiting it being no more than 3 consecutive days, or you're limiting
That's a
it
good
by
point.
saying it's a special event. So it's not gonna be somebody parks there for the whole summer.
Yeah,
That won't happen anymore. So maybe we
how do
don't
people
even
feel
need
about that? Yeah, I know you don't feel great about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say, like, they're not doing anything wrong, but to me, that feels like that's such a wrongdoing. So it's hard for me to agree that that's the case.
Well,
And it's
legally,
also-
they're not breaking any
No,
zoning.
because our
Currently,
zoning, our
yeah,
zoning was
currently.
over 20 years old or whatever.
Right.
And this didn't involve zoning,
Yeah,
that's your problem.
yeah, the ordinance, I mean, was from
Yeah.
2008. Okay, are we good with it the way it is? Do we wanna change the distance? We wanna change it back to 200, which is where Shelburne has it. Other places I've talked to said, we've never had an issue. Rutland's like, we never had an issue with it being next to a restaurant.
Well, I think, okay, so thinking about Rutland where all the restaurants are, there's not really any open spaces
That's
for
right.
them to pull in.
That's
I
true.
started out with my food truck down in where the ground round used to be. There were no restaurants in that area, so I found a hole where there were people who could use some food,
Mhm.
and I went in there. And I was there for 3 weeks, and then I was fully booked for the summer, and I pulled out.
Yeah.
I was at weddings and events and
Yeah.
whatever. So, cause that's where the money is. Honestly, doing a parking lot stuff.
Where was Ram Ram?
It's where the new car wash is on Route 7.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Ponderosa.
Ponderosa. It was closed. It was closed then, so I just paid them the Manieri's like a rental.
So much I do
So-
there.
I think what's gonna happen is we're gonna give this to the trustees
They're
or the
gonna
select
tweak it.
board. And they're gonna add to it or take it away or whatever. So I think we should go with what we have and give
Okay.
it to them,
So we can move on.
cause
Okay, so next on our agenda, oh my god, it's already 7:30. Do we wanna move our yearly goals next month?
yes.
Yeah, I don't feel like it's a waste of time to do them because they're really a good place to start on working on town zoning and the town plan. And also, we're working directly with the ones from the town plan, so that'll be part of the town plan we've already taken a look at, even though we may want to add to them later. The other thing I want to tell you is Jason's not at this meeting because we did get the grant, thanks to Terry and mostly Jason and Martha. I think I went to 2 meetings total. We got the municipal planning grant to work on the town zoning. And what else I want to tell you? And he said that the thing that we can do, because they don't start for a couple months with us, the thing we can do in the meantime is take a look at the flood regs. So next month we can do our goals and take a look at the flood regs that we did for the village and make sure that they also will apply to the town. Next month's agenda, just talked about that. Town zoning updates, just talked about that. Board member comments? Thanks for everybody's input. I feel like everybody contributed. It was great. Citizens' comments? Mr. Alden?
Yeah, I just wanna go on record again in the minutes, saying that I'm very concerned that comments from citizens was removed. That has never been removed, that is on every single agenda, select board, village trustees, planning board. You know, it's very concerning, it should be concerning to everybody on this board, that there was the decision made to remove comments from citizens at the beginning. Yes, it's always under other business, but there's absolutely no reason to have removed that, other than, the obvious, that you don't always care to hear what the residents say, and maybe there's residents or citizens or public that, you don't wanna hear from. So I would ask that that be replaced in the future, because there was absolutely no reason to have that removed, except for one. Thank you.
Just so you know, that's not the reason it was removed from there. We're just trying to be consistent with our rules of procedure. Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. A motion and a moment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.